Wow. Well, you know, yesterday we wrote a list of all the times he called John McCain. Yeah, I was writing this down right before we came on the air. You know, I always told my staff, you can fight somebody in politics, but you better only have a one-front war. You've got to pick your battles carefully. Donald Trump went to South Carolina, where Lindsey Graham is a very popular Republican politician, and gave out his cell phone, attacked him. He attacked the most important newspaper in Iowa, the Des Moines Register. I don't care how many caucus goers work at the Des Moines Register. Of course, we had John McCain this weekend. The New York Times has a story about a tough back and forth with Rupert Murdoch on the front page. Rick Perry, of course, added to the list. Jeb Bush added to the list. At some point, he may want to ignore the noise. You know, I wrote a post yesterday on Facebook, Mika, where I said, if he stops the self-inflicted wounds, the Republican establishment could be in big, big trouble. Don't know if he's going to do that. It just seems to keep spiraling deeper and deeper here.
Well, I'm not
more
sure
and more
polls,
fights, more and more battles.
Not sure the polls are showing them to be self-inflicted wounds. Mike Barnacle's here, Jonathan Capehart's here, Sam Stein at the table. Anyone in Washington, Alex? All right, so let's go. Can I borrow your glasses, Jonathan? I want to look smarter. No?
You won't be able to see it.
Oh, all right. It won't work for me, will it? As we saw, Donald Trump went to South Carolina yesterday, and he didn't hold back. Not at all. Trump went hard after the state's senior senator and fellow Republican presidential candidate Lindsey Graham for these comments the senator made yesterday.
Stop being a jackass. You don't have to run for president and be the world's biggest jackass.
I see your senator. What a stiff. What a stiff. Lindsey Graham. Today I got called a jackass by this guy. And then I said to myself, hey, didn't this guy call me like 4 years ago? Yes. He called me 4 years ago, 4 years ago. Lindsey Graham. I didn't even know who he was. He goes, Mr. Trump, this is Senator Lindsey Graham. I wonder if it would be possible for you to call Fox. And he wanted to know whether or not I could give him a good reference on Fox and Friends, okay? He wanted to know. Would I do that? And then, of course, he wanted to know whether or not he could come and see me for some campaign contributions. And he gave me his number, and I found the card. I wrote the number down. I don't know if it's the right number. Let's try it. 202. I don't know. Maybe it's, you know, it's 3, 4 years ago, so maybe it's an old number. 202.
Oh, God. The phone number was, in fact, Senator Graham's private cell phone, which he gave out. Graham tweeted, probably getting a new phone. iPhone or Android. This is not the first time Trump has published the private number of someone he was feuding with. Last month, he published Univision anchor Jorge Ramos' phone number after the channel announced it was severing ties with Miss Universe pageant over his comments about undocumented immigrants. So it's just, I don't know if it's just below the belt, but it's just over the line all the time. And I think your point about fight a war on one front might be a good one. This is taking on a lot of enemies.
Pick your battles. Yeah, pick your battles. I'm baffled how you wake up one day and you're doubling just about everybody else in polls, and Willie, the next day you're going out of your way to pick one fight after another. I mean, it's, you ignore the noise, especially when you're at the top of the polls. You ignore the noise. It makes them look smaller. You don't engage. But I just...
This is a whole new...
Obviously, it's not in his makeup to do that.
Well, I think as the numbers go up, he feels more and more bulletproof, which he feels already. And I think it's time for everyone to stop being shocked when he does things like this, when he says things like he's been saying over the last few days. This is who he is. He's a giant middle finger to the political process. He is, to the political process. And by the way, that's why a lot of people like him, because he does not play by established rules in politics. And we've actually, I think we've got a poll, how much Donald Trump's comments about John McCain's war service have hurt him. The new national poll says not a lot. Trump leads with 22 points. This is a new poll from the Morning Consult. We had the one yesterday from the Washington Post that had him at 23%. Jeb Bush is at 15. Scott Walker's at 12. The poll conducted Saturday through Monday, when Republicans were pounding Trump for saying John McCain was not a war hero. So, Jonathan Capehart, there was some question from the Washington Post poll about the last day of polling on Sunday. They said that his numbers dropped a great deal after the McCain comments, but now this is a poll that's taken through that time that shows him right about at the same level, 22, 23%.
Yeah, shows that the Lounge Act is working. And I say Lounge Act because yesterday Reverend Sharpton came to the Washington Post and met with us, and I asked him about, like, you're a New Yorker, you know Donald Trump, give us your assessment of what's happening. And he had a brilliant analogy. He said the first time he went to Vegas, James Brown told him, Reverend, let me tell you something, there's a difference between the Lounge Act and the acts that play in the main room. And he said, when you're in the lounge, you're competing with the bars and the barmaids and the slot machines and the people gambling, so you do whatever you can to get attention. But when you're in the main room, they pay to see a show, you've got to be ready, you've got to have choreography, you've got to be rehearsed, you got to have polish. When you get on the main stage, Reverend, whatever you did to get out of the lounge, don't do that on the main stage. And it's a brilliant analogy. And then so I said, but Reverend, our poll says 62% of the people like the Lounge Act. And he said, yeah, people like the Lounge Act when you're sitting around drinking a beer and you're talking, but when you decide that you want to go up and get the wives want to go to the main room. And so you go, you get your tickets,
at the debates.
You get your tickets, you get dressed up, and you go.
Okay, so given the fact that there's different ways of looking at this, and this approach seems to be destructive, but then polls aren't backing that up. Sam Stein, the Huffington Post made a decision last week to put Donald Trump coverage in its entertainment section.
Yeah, we did.
So what was the reason behind that? Because clearly he made some, he's insulted your boss several times in a very personal way. Is that what it's about?
No, this isn't personal.
What is it?
It's because he's the Lounge Act. I mean, that's
He's not a candidate?
Well, he's a candidate in the fact that he's filed paperwork, but I think we're all concluding here that this is a campaign that's basically sustained by media attention,
Has
right?
the Huffington Post ever done that? I mean, did they do that with Herman Cain?
Did we do what with Herman Cain?
Put him in the entertainment section?
No, we've made an editorial judgment in this case that Donald Trump is a candidate who is sustained.
What about Sarah Palin? Why didn't you put her in the entertainment section?
Well, let me just talk about Trump for a second. He's sustained by media attention, right? This is essentially a campaign that would not exist, would not be at this stage in the polls if it weren't for the fact that we're now 10 minutes into this morning.
That's just not true.
No, it's true.
That's just not.
There was a stat that just came out that 37% of nightly news coverage over the past month of all the candidates has been devoted to Donald Trump. 37%.
Do you know
that seems
why
a little
that is,
excessive. Now, Jonathan called him a Lounge Act. I think that we're just making an editorial judgment that we need to treat him as the Lounge Act that he is. Now, you can still get any Trump news you want on our website. We're not saying we're not going to cover the guy, but we're not also passive observers in this process. We're making editorial judgments that any newspaper can make.
That is absolutely absurd to suggest that Donald Trump. That is absurd. And we started this program talking about how this might be unsustainable, but Donald Trump is being covered by the news because Donald Trump is in first place in the polls. Donald Trump has been around in the public as long as I think you've probably been alive. He has been a public figure for 30 years. Yeah. He is a billionaire. He's had a top show. We could go down the list of all the things he has done. The media's not creating Donald Trump. If the media tried to create anybody, it tried to create John Huntsman, and the crowds didn't follow because John Huntsman was their type of Republican. Donald Trump is not the media's type of Republican or Democrat or independent or whatever he is. So
well, I wouldn't say the media is creating Donald Trump. I'm saying the media is sustaining Donald Trump. And I think Donald Trump knows that the media is sustaining him, which is why he goes out and he does things like call McCain not a war hero, why he gives cell phone numbers out. I mean, this is someone who very clearly recognizes, and probably strategically brilliant to do this, that in this crowded primary field, it makes sense to constantly be on the headline. That's my theory.
Mike Barnicle, are people in New Hampshire going out to see Donald Trump and South Carolina going out to see Donald Trump because of the nightly news and what they're reporting? Or are they going out because they're angry? They're genuinely angry. And all these things that actually are off-putting to us actually, for some reason, speaks to a very angry electorate.
The electorate is angry, Joe, but the people in New Hampshire and South Carolina, I would submit, aren't being prompted by the nightly news to go out and see Donald Trump, but they are being encouraged to go see Donald Trump because he is a sideshow. They know he is never, ever, ever going to be president of the United States, but they might get a few chuckles in the middle of a hot summer out of going out and listening to him.
How many Italians do you think said that about Berlusconi? And I am not carrying Donald Trump's water here. I'm flabbergasted that he just keeps attacking people. But how many Italians do you think said that about Berlusconi?
I don't know. I don't speak Italian. But I will tell you this, Joe. I mean, to Sam's point, we played a clip of a United States Senator, Lindsey Graham, a sitting United States Senator. It was about a 15-second clip. We've been talking about Donald Trump now and showing Donald Trump now for 12 minutes. We're about to have a story about the sitting governor of Ohio, John Kasich, running for president. You can't win as a Republican for president unless you carry the state of Ohio. I think the Kasich story might be 45 seconds or a minute.
Okay.
So Trump is on overload.
Okay, all right, so hold on. Let's put up the poll that Willie put up this morning from about Donald Trump not being damaged. Donald Trump is at 22%. I don't see John Kasich there. I think news coverage, Mika, follows people who are in first place. We haven't heard about Ben Carson in a while. Yeah. If Ben Carson were at 22% right now, we would be talking this morning about Ben Carson. Yeah. Same with Mike Huckabee. Joe, if Rubio were, we would be talking about that as well.
I think this is a fascinating conversation, and we're going to have to come back to it, Sam, especially in terms of the Huffington Post decision. I don't see Trump being covered only in the style section. I'm not sure about the decision. Hold on. You say the media sustains now Donald Trump. Many would argue that the media sustained candidate Barack Obama.
Sure. I know.
Huge difference.
I want to
huge difference. Wait a minute. That's great. That's great. And that's, by the way, not your job. And not your job.
I just want to make one quick distinction, though. We're not saying that the issues that Trump's raised aren't serious political issues. For instance, this talk about immigration that he's raised is a political conversation. And when immigration reform activists or fellow Republicans go after Trump because they feel like he's gone too far on that issue, that's a substantive political issue. But when the stuff coming out of Trump's mouth is pure vitriol, when it's the middle finger to the political process, when he's giving out cell phone numbers, we have made an editorial decision that that's not politics. It is political entertainment.
Why didn't you do that during Sarah Palin?
Sarah Palin was chosen as the vice presidential nominee of John McCain. At that juncture, she is literally the vice presidential nominee.
If Donald Trump
there's no editorial choice at that point.
Okay. Well, it seems sort of similar, but anyhow.